technical mishaps leading up to this, but we got it, and we are here once again on Thursday at roughly 11 a.m. to be doing Geek Speak. And today we are going to be talking about Facebook ads or Meta ads versus Google ads, the eternal struggle.
My favorite. My favorite.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely one, and we definitely wanted to cover this one because I know that there's been a lot of changes on our side with doing a lot of Google ads. I know that some people have
Yeah.
said that there's a lot of big, not necessarily technical, but just strategies and things to look out for with Facebook ads or Meta ads recently, or at least the last
Yeah.
year. And so we thought we would cover that. We're going to talk about who should be running Facebook ads versus Google ads. There's definitely some people we would strongly recommend not to do Google ads. And then finally, like things that we're really liking about kind of both of the systems right now and how they work with your funnel. Uh,
Yeah. So my name's Rena Little from Little Works Indie Media, and you are?
Phelan Lewis with Seymour Digital Media.
We missed that part. It was so
Well, I was
exciting,
actually,
our entry to the
yeah, no, I
live.
was like just about to jump in with that one as well. So yeah, we were
Oh,
both on.
good.
We're like, don't forget to do the introductions. Don't forget to do those.
Yeah. All right. So where should we start, Phelan?
So I think that one for me that I know I wanted to talk about was like the big changes that have been happening for Google ads because Google's been is really liking their own Performance Max campaigns right now, and so
Mm.
Performance Max is kind of the thing that's all the rage with Google ads. Some people really like it. Some people just kind of accept that this is the way it goes. And just so if you're not aware, Google's new Performance Max campaigns came out in 2021, and they're basically every type of ad platform or every type of ad that they offer all in one type of campaign. And
Yeah.
it's heavy with the automations. It's heavy it used to be really bad with not giving you much insight. It was just sort of like you give it some signals and then it goes off and does a bunch of stuff, and then they're like, hey, you got a bunch of conversions, and then you'd say, hey, where did they come from? And they say, yeah, you got a bunch of conversions. And they've gotten a lot better. Only about a month ago they opened up a bunch of like insights tabs, and so you can really see like I'm getting all my leads from YouTube or something like that, and so you can actually see a lot more detail about where they're coming from, what people are typing in. um, and so it's definitely a big one right now is those Performance Max. um, I I feel that they're kind of the joke I have is that they're very similar to Facebook ads, where Google kind of looked over to Facebook and went, you really just kind of let them just put in a little some details, a couple images, and just say like, find me some people like this, and they go, okay, and then you go off and do it, and then they were kind of like, man,
Yeah.
I really wish we had that.
Yeah. 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 That's true. All right. So the one thing that I want to know about though is everybody, and I noticed the way that you described it just a few minutes ago, does this thing where they think that it's Google ads or Facebook ads, and there's some kind of um, separated space. And the one thing that I love about working with Google ads providers is that um, my I feel like I get a better result when I combine a strategy that includes Facebook ads and Google ads at the same time. So I don't try one and then decide that that doesn't work and then try another. I think that's a bit of a mistake actually that a lot of businesses make. They decide that either Google or Facebook doesn't work for their business when they haven't really had a professional do it, or they may have had one person try one strategy or for a short term. But it does take a little bit for, first of all, for providers to really get your business and make those changes to make it better. Like you want to work with one person that's constantly testing and tweaking, and also it takes a little bit for the algorithm to work. So we usually tell people, you want to commit to Google Ads at least for 3 months to make sure
Yeah.
that you can get to that point where something is happening really nicely. How long do you like your clients to commit to at the
Uh,
beginning?
yeah, I would say it. bare minimum has to be 3 months. I mean, it's
Hmm.
not just us that are saying this one as well. That other people that
Yeah.
we follow online on YouTube is saying, like,
Yeah.
even like I've set it up perfectly, my Google Ads, and the accounts, because the algorithm's kind of figuring people out
Yeah.
and like testing,
Yeah.
and performance max is definitely because it does a lot of prospecting, so it does all the top of
Hmm.
funnel and the retargeting. So it takes
Right.
a little while to goes, oh, these people responded to this one, and so because of
Hmm.
that, and then the conversions happen three weeks later. Well, if you just
Yes.
panic and immediately shut it down, well, then you've got no data, you don't
Yes.
have anything to work with.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So that data, what you're working with is really important, and moving from supplier to supplier is a bit of a mistake because a lot of them start with their own. There's always like these ways of setting things up that people like to work in their own work. So they'll set you up with a new account usually, and then they don't, either the person before them has used a completely different approach and you can't really make heads or tails of the data, or um, you know what I mean? Like you can't, it's very hard to look at someone else's work and see what was really going on. Sometimes it's easy. In Facebook, it could be a bit easier. How do you find, can you look at people's work? That's a good question, actually. I just assume Google Ads is a little bit more complicated on the back end for setup.
The one really good thing that I do really like about Google Ads as like their back end is the change history, so you can see what was
Mm,
done at what time by who,
right.
which is super powerful for just checking on contractors, seeing what they're doing, seeing what the team did,
Yeah.
when they did it, being able to get a timetable of those things. As well, one other thing, kind of going off of what you were saying, is having like brand new accounts is a really bad thing because
Yeah.
these algorithms are trying to figure out how they fit you into a network that has like 7 million other people advertising, right? And so they're
That's true.
trying to figure you out in this flow. And it's same for even stopping and starting campaigns is terrible for
Yes. Yes.
because
Yes.
there's you stop it, you make some changes, and then you launch it again. Well, they're kind of like, well, how do I fit you back into it? And you're not going to see the same results unless you've like really it's just it's dangerous, right? It's a big
Yeah.
gamble that more often than not we've always seen it have huge negative results. Like it's very rare that we've seen it uptick from stopping, making big changes, relaunching the campaign. It's just the way these systems are is that they don't like big changes. They like to have
Yeah.
slow incremental changes on accounts that have been there a while, have historical data.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
generally what they like because they have so many things that are going on at the same time that if you're like just trying to jump in there, they don't know how to fit you in.
Right. Right. Okay. So I find that Facebook ads are a little bit more responsive in that way. Like the targeting can be a bit more responsive. So it doesn't need 3 months necessarily to test and figure out what you're doing. It can take a lot less time, in fact. And and I guess with the max, so what you're telling me is that the max, what did you call it again? The max
A
what?
performance max.
Max
I call
performance
them
max, right? I knew it
PMax
was
or
two words.
performance max. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Well,
it's not the best name.
yeah, so if they're doing the high-end targeting, I think that's usually how I use Facebook. So the way that I like to use Facebook is with Google Ads. I don't really
Mm-hmm.
find either of them perform particularly well on their own because they're doing two very, very different things. And it also
Yeah,
depends on the kind of client, which I think we're going to get to in a
yeah,
moment. But I like to use Facebook that has like this more, it feels like a more detailed data space. Like they have a lot more data on people, and although it's pared back since all the privacy issues,
yeah,
but we can target fairly substantially on Facebook, and because they've collected just way more data from all of our posts, all the things that we interact with, and all of that sort of stuff. So the nice thing about that is that it's really fun to get top level funnel people over. So people who aren't aware that they have a problem, they aren't aware, or they might be just aware that they have a problem, but they're not aware of you for sure. And you can start targeting them with content and getting them to the website. And then what
yeah,
that does is that sort of triggers, a view on the website, and then we can retarget in Facebook, but even better, we can retarget in Google at the same time, because as we know, as Phelan and I know, especially, people don't, they don't need something, click an ad, and then make the purchase immediately. It usually takes a number of touch points to get them there. So it could be that they first see a Facebook ad, they go to the website, they read the information, and then they're doing something else and they're online, and Phelan's retargeting them with Google ads, like, finding them. And then they're reminded, oh, yeah, there's this thing that I was interested in. And then eventually something happens in their life and they decide, oh my goodness, it's going to be a heat wave next week. I need an air conditioner. And then they actually sit down to make a purchase, and they'll go online, and that's when they'll make the purchase, because they remember your brand over anyone else's brand, because you sent them to that website from Facebook to take a look at that blog post and get the information that they need before the heat wave, ages ago. And that's what the assisted conversions, what I love so much about looking at assisted conversions in Google
Mhm.
Analytics, is that you can actually see those things working really, really well together. And so that's why I kind of like, I get my back gets up a little bit when I hear people say, oh, well, Google ads are better than Facebook ads, or
Yeah.
Facebook ads are better than Google ads. It's like they perform completely different functions, people, and they should work nicely together if you've got an organized strategy.
Yeah, yeah,
There we go.
I totally agree with you that it's definitely
Yeah.
one that I very very rare do I think it's just like it's all one or the other. I would
Hmm.
say that the only ones that we've had a fair bit of experience that are it's kind of like home service companies that do really well on Google
Right.
Ads. So like,
Yes.
I need a plumber. It's not really
Yes.
something that a Facebook ad is necessarily going to be the best one, because you're like, I need a plumber like
Yes.
right now,
That's
and
right.
so that's kind of
Yeah.
one where, but that's also part of where Google Ads I we feel performs a bit better with those as people that you already know what the business does. Like you don't need to
That's right.
research about the plumbers. You need to know, does this
That's
plumber
right.
fix this problem? And
That's
okay,
right.
they
So
do.
they're down here. They're down here in the funnel when they're on
Yeah,
Google looking for a solution. And that's absolutely true. That's why um, things that you can sell that that have like a precondition. So, people are getting their furnaces done
yeah,
before the fall. They're buying their air conditioning in the early summer. They are, they've clogged their sink. They need a plumber. Anything that has a kind of like a pre thing, or school is coming, the
yeah,
applications need to be in, that type of thing. Those things really do work well on Google. But when they get to Google, how do they decide? Well, they're going to decide based on um, location. Are you near them? They could decide on, um, do they recognize your name, or do they actually think they recognize your name? Do you know what I mean? Like they may not actually know your brand, but the name sounds familiar or seems familiar in some way. That's another way.
yeah,
Um, and they may make a decision based on if you're showing up on that Google map, you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
and how many
Reviews.
stars, yeah, reviews you
Yeah.
have. What does that look like? So that all of those things go into how somebody makes a decision. And when people are actually ready to make a decision, they definitely usually do so on Google. But what are the things that you think don't work well on Google? Because I want to see if they match up with the things that I think do well on Facebook.
So one that we immediately steer people away of is your brand new company. So if you
Mm-hmm.
don't like, you have your funnel hasn't even been tested. Like you're billing out. Google Ads is not the
Mm-hmm.
thing to do. The Google Ads is when you want to
Yeah.
supercharge your existing funnel, and you're like, okay, I know I'm getting conversions. I know my targeting is right. My messaging is right. Okay, now we're ready for ads. That's where you should be
Okay.
looking at ads. Uh,
Okay. Because I
and
always thought that new companies would be a good idea, because that's a good way for them to get on that first page without actually indexing any content on that first page.
it can be. It's just it's very dangerous unless again you're already in a known space, right? Like if I'm
Okay,
like a
got it.
company that's like you already know what we do, you already know the service. It doesn't take a bunch of explanation from us on
Right,
how we work well together. Then that's great. Like
right.
then you could do that.
Okay.
It's just it's tougher. It's again like your messaging working? Like it's about like because Google Ads captures existing attention. That's kind of the idea of
Yeah.
it, is that it's already, people are aware of the problem and the solution, and you're just trying
Yeah.
to make sure that you're showing up at the right time at the right moment with the right message. That's closer to what it's doing. Whereas, and so you want to make sure that it's kind of tested. That's already a proven space, because
Yeah.
it's, you're going to spend a bunch of money and then have a lot of headache and not have any results if you don't have any sort of success to measure it against. Um,
Yeah.
but the other one that we really strongly recommend otherwise is anyone like coaches.
Hmm.
Coaches should avoid Google ads, maybe YouTube
Hmm.
ads, but it's just they always
Hmm.
do so much better on Facebook and Meta that
Totally.
I don't recommend
Totally.
it.
That's true because Meta allows you to have these really long form
Yeah,
ads where you can get across a little bit more your sometimes your conversion story or your origin story. Lots of people use those two techniques. Or you can really help people identify that you are the client that we're looking for. So if you're niching down, you can really lay that out in an ad. Um, and you can really hit those pain points. Like Google ads are quite short form, right?
yeah.
How many characters or words can you put in a Google ad?
It's 30 character headlines, three of them, and then
Yeah,
125 character description.
yeah. So it's more like a
So
tweet, the old style tweets.
yeah, exactly.
Right,
So
right. Whereas
it,
in Meta, you can actually like hook someone and then give them a little bit more
yeah,
information and then finally give them, yeah. So you can actually get your branding across more easily than you
yeah,
can on Google. So it works for people who don't know you. Um,
yeah,
and it
uh,
also shows social proof. So if you've got an ad going through your feed and your buddy whom you respect greatly has left a comment that they're working with that person or they love working with that person or they're looking forward to working with that person, then that's going to pique your interest and the social proof is going to be very helpful.
yeah, totally. I would also say that, like, going back to like how you think of your funnel and how you're getting people as well, that like,
Hmm.
Meta is a lot more disruptive, and so no one's really going out going
Hmm.
like, I feel stressed, I need a coach. Like, that's not really like what you're more just like
No,
scrolling through Facebook or
you're inter
Instagram, and
yeah, we're interrupting you.
yeah, and then you're trying to reach them at that pain point, because most people aren't
Hmm.
even like, you're trying to get them when they're not even necessarily aware of it per se, or that
Hmm.
you could help them out with this problem that they're having in their life, and they're, because like generally people aren't just like typing that into Google of like, I've got this
No.
problem with my life.
Yeah, or they're doom scrolling and you're hoping
Yeah,
to catch those very particular personalities like business owners or something like that that will be doom scrolling. You can pretty much target those people. I love doom
yeah,
scrolling.
exactly. Yeah, so it that's definitely, yeah, a big one that, yeah, those would be the big ones that we kind of notice. Is there anyone you would
Hmm.
recommend not doing it for Meta ads or Facebook ads?
Facebook ads. Um, Well, I have noticed that events are tricky. So events used to be really great to push, um, but for whatever reason, there is a real specific way of doing event ads, and that means that you need to have an event page, obviously, but you need to have a good strategy with that. You can't just take an event ad and just push it through. Um, hey, Mona.
Hey,
Thanks for joining.
yeah,
So, if you have an event ad, my three top things to do for that is make sure that your event page is actually active. Get on there, make
mm,
some posts, invite some people. Like so many people, they don't want to invite anyone, they just put it up there and hope for the best. And in the
yeah,
olden days, that actually could work because it would show up as a suggested event in the event section. But now it's not, it doesn't have the same algorithmic push that it used to. So now you need to make sure that that event is active. Get some invitees on there, interact with them make sure the description is full, interact with them on the discussion page, or even just start a discussion, or make sure your information is full. So many people put events and then they don't really describe them very thoroughly, and you have no idea what to expect. it's really important to make sure that people know what to expect. Then the second part of it is, who are you going to send that event page out to? Because doing it through the engagement post is not, an engagement ad is not particularly useful anymore like it used to be. What I recommend is going back and creating specific audiences. So what we like to do, or what I like to do, is push some kind of video that shows a past event or something like that, and then track the viewers and send that event out to the viewers that watched that video. That's a really good strategy. Or if you have, my other favorite thing is, if you've got a meaty looking um, uh, client list, and pro tip, you don't have to have people who have opted into your email list to use on a meta ad, because it's not email marketing. So you
Yeah.
can take all of the people that have opted out or had never signed up that you know have dealt with you. If you've got their email, you can throw that on a list, upload it, and then send your event to those people in particular. And that can really be helpful, actually. But sending out an engagement event with no visitors invited, no one showing up as going, not a full description, and no discussion, that's going to be a waste of money in my mind. I don't like those ones.
Yeah, that's fair. I get that.
Yeah,
But that's a good
and they're
one.
expensive.
Yes, yeah. Well, I was gonna say that's definitely because you had mentioned about like retargeting warm audiences. I mean, it's the same with Google as well. Like, the more you can get
Hmm.
people that have already taken some action and then retarget those people, I mean, it's
Yeah,
just gonna, it's more cost efficient. And I mean, you always should be looking for ways to do that as well. And with
yeah.
Google Analytics 4, it's even easier to build audiences because everything's event
Hmm.
based, including like page loads. So if they make it to a certain
Right.
page and not a certain
Oh,
other page,
right.
then that's an easy audience to build out.
Okay. That's
Yeah,
exciting, actually. Now I
yeah,
know what
yeah,
I'm going to do next.
yeah. Oh, also, one thing I should make explicit because most people probably don't know this. If you advertise with Facebook or Google, you are actually advertising on both. They sell to each
Oh,
other. They're the largest traders between each other's platforms. Is between the two of them. It was called Operation Bernanke.
okay. Explain that a little bit. So, what does that mean?
So if you see a Google display ad, so when
Hmm.
you're doing Facebook ads and you look at placements and it says interstitial,
Yes,
that
yes, yes.
interstitial 9 times out of 10 is a Google display ad that Facebook is
I
buying
see.
space from Google, and Google also buys space from Facebook. They
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's the reason why the
I
internet
don't think I knew
literally
that.
is a second slower. Every page loads a second slower, is
Hmm.
because they slow down everyone's website so that they can both get in on each other's auctions for the ad
Hmm.
space. And so that's just a fun fact that it's Operation Bernanke, named after the Federal Reserve Chair in 2008. Um, I
Awesome.
don't know why they named it that. They don't like. I think it's because he printed a bunch of money, and I think that's what it alludes to. But yeah, they that's what it was called, and they got busted for it because it's very much like, because they're
Oh,
the two
wow.
biggest ad platform. Like, that's straight up
Yeah,
collusion, and they're just like,
totally.
yeah. And so anyway,
Totally.
I was just wanted to make that explicit because I noticed that
Hmm.
on my own that I get like other shows up in my UTM parameters as placement, because you can set up the
Hmm.
dynamic placements, and so
Yeah,
I noticed that I get a bunch of those, and I realized that it's because they advertise on each other's platforms as well. So just keep
yeah.
that in mind. Um, but I'd also one other one that's kind of been weird. Have you tested this one? Is brick and mortar locations with Google
Yes.
ads and Facebook ads?
Yes, 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 yes. And here's the yes, we used to have a gift store that we used, and what I liked about it is that um, even if you sent if you so you can do two things on this. Is you can either, like, for me, it's the same company usually has an online store, and so I always go through this phase where it's like, well, do we push ads to get people into the brick and mortar store, or do we push ads to get people to make sales on the website? And um, it was really quite interesting because it didn't really matter if we did the book brick and if we did the brick and mortar, the online sales went up anyways.
Hmm.
And if we did the product sales focused on the e-store, we noticed that the number of telephone calls would go up, and those people would generally go into the store. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So and then what you're looking at is how are you tracking? So, and how do you show
Yeah.
that ROI to the client? So that's the most important part, which helps you determine which sort of focus you're going to take. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I originally I was definitely usually a bigger proponent of pushing the online website because I can track everything through
Hmm.
there, and like my data brain is more suited to like I
Hmm.
want to know like what they're all doing to it. But after talking to a couple of the our clients that do have people visit them,
Hmm.
one of them was in Vermont, and so they get a lot of people that are from like the New York or the Acela corridor
Hmm.
area go up there, and right they're spending the weekend with the kids in the summer. So that was a big one that we had pushed it as like people coming to visit there, and they had like live events in there. So it was like a wood, they did woodwork, and so you could see people doing it
Hmm.
live, and that was kind of a cool
Hmm.
feature. They apparently it did really well with the Google ad, so they have something called
Oh, that's
in-store
good.
visit. So it uses Google
Yeah.
Business Profile. I'm trying to like retrofit how I did this, but it got something like 2 million impressions in
Oh,
for
that's great.
$400. So it did
That's
like
actually great. Yeah.
yeah
So, yeah, and that's the thing. That's really the most important thing is like deciding what your KPIs are and what you want to track, and
yeah
understanding that if your till sales are increasing in the store, it's not a like I did have one client who was kind of like, well, we don't need Google Ads anymore because our sales are up in the store and our sales on the website aren't really going up, without seeing that those two things are actually related. you
yeah
know and I think that's the one thing. And the other thing that to note that I find interesting is like many times, almost every time I've started running Google Ads, organic results improve also. And I find that that's just an interesting correlation, that I get in trouble for saying all the time, and I know I've said it a few times on these Geek Speaks.
yeah
But that's so it doesn't hurt. But what is really important, or the thing that I think is the most important, is that when you are starting Google Ads, figure out a way to track your phone calls, because
mm,
we can track how many calls come through. Um, the website. And then what you want to do is, and we can also tell you which numbers they are. And then what's really important on this in business side is track them. Track what happened on those calls. Were they asking for your address? Were they did they buy something? Did nothing happen? And track the the sales that come about, because that's going to really help you understand the leads, the number of leads, the number, you know, of um, of sales you get from leads, and the number of sales you get from impressions, all that sort of stuff. It really helps with the data, especially if you're a service-based industry only and you don't have anything that you sell specifically on your website. That there's not a buy now button. So
yeah
that's really important. And the people that track those phone calls the best, usually are the most satisfied with the results.
yeah yeah and you can always use a tool like CallRail as well that
That's true.
does like phone recordings and stuff like that. We have a
But
couple clients that do that because they're so it's like it's
do they record
education
the
based
actual
and
phone call? I thought
yeah
they just recorded that the call went through.
no CallRail will record the entire call so you can listen back. It's for like
Oh, the
salespeople and
conversation.
stuff like that.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I did not know that. I did use
Yeah.
CallRail for one client a long time ago, but I don't know if they did that at the time or not. But yeah, that is great. That's great to know.
Yeah, it's definitely worth looking into if you want to get that granular data. And I think you have to tell them
Hmm.
like I think there's a little notification like this call is being recorded for quality purposes.
Ah, right,
Um,
right, right.
yeah, so it'll have that little like bit at the start of it just to let them know because I mean it's
Hmm.
you have to tell people. But
Hmm.
I think most people when they're calling like a business are expecting that there's going to be some level of that that's going on as well. Uh,
Yeah, it's not uncommon.
yeah. All right. So we are coming up on time.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Yeah. It
Did we
is.
catch all of our points, or do we need to shove one or in there at the end?
I think we got pretty much. Well, we covered
Yeah.
everything I was hoping for. Is like, cause
Yeah, I
sort of.
can't think of anything else.
Yeah. So that leaves me for next week is going to be Pip and I, and we're talking about the secrets of searching on Google. Uh,
Right on. Right. So, if you are watching us elsewhere, you can always come back to where you are. If not, you can also join us where we go live from the Facebook group Cyberpunk Marketing Mixer, Cyberpunk Geek Marketing Mixer. That's where we are in Facebook. I know I will get it right one day. I always do it in my mind perfectly, and then on the call, not so well. But
it happens.
anyways, so we'll be back next Thursday at 11.
All right. Sounds good. And we will see you guys then. Bye for now.
Have a good week.